Hello everyone, sorry, I always mean to adjust this thing before and then I don't, anyway. I don't know. I gotta get a better setup, as it were, because, just recording off of my phone is fucking lame, but, it's alright. It'll do for now. It's about 8 o'clock. I got called in early to work, which sucked. Still got out of here in about 8 hours, though it wasn't bad. But I was only supposed to do an evening shift, and I get called in early, but it's okay. I mean, it's fine. I didn't make a lot of money because it was slow, but again, it's fine. I always misgauge this. I always think, I can go after this car, and I'm never right, and I am going to be here all night. So, anyway. So I want to talk a little more about the election, some more just kind of rambling about that. And the thing that I think we sort of need to, discuss is the immigration stuff, because that, I know, is a big concern for a lot of people, and it's kind of a concern for me, too. I mean, and you almost don't know where to begin with that stuff. I mean, the whole idea of building a wall strikes me as sort of patently absurd. And I mean, for a long time, the Republicans have talked about putting the guard on the border, which makes a little more sense. Have a mobile force on the border, if the goal is to secure the border, that seems to be a better way to do it. Just have the National Guard there, on patrol. I'm sure they could set up various checkpoints and things, and we could be really, we could be paying attention to who comes into the country and who doesn't, and under what circumstances, if that's the route we want to go. Building a wall is just, I don't know how that's going to get done. I don't know who's going to invest in it. I don't know, this whole idea that, we're going to make Mexico pay for it. No. Be really surprised if that's a thing that can be pulled off. So I don't know. And there's that, the whole border issue is separate from the issue of what do we do with the people that are already here. And that's where things get dicey, because the border issue, I think, however you feel about it, however you feel about that whole situation, you can't really, obviously the United States, like every other country in the world, can decide who gets in and under what circumstances. That's a thing we get to do. It's a thing Mexico gets to do. It's a thing Canada gets to do. It's a thing Brazil gets to do, and Argentina gets to do, and Australia gets to do, and New Zealand gets to do, and Japan gets to do. That's what countries get to decide. So, we have a right to do that. But what do we do with the people that are here? And there's just no way. And I don't know, because, what Trump has said, which again kind of makes sense, is that we're going to find the people that are, maybe, I don't know how we're going to find them. We're going to find the criminals, he says, supposedly. And we're going to deport them or deal with them in some way. Well, okay, that's fine, and that's reasonable. But I still kind of have the overreaching question of how? Obviously, if somebody is arrested and then, on a charge of, something, and that person is an undocumented immigrant, then we can kind of say, okay, well, now we got some options here as to how we can handle this. But, there's no way, how are you going to find the people that are criminals until they are arrested? So and that to me is a different situation than trying to hunt them down, which I don't know if that's what he's doing, if he's going to propose, he hasn't really said, here's sort of the plan. But I know that a lot of people are worried, particularly about, the issue of, people who are here illegally but have children that are U.S. citizens. That's a really problematic issue. And for years, the Republican rhetoric has been pretty scary on this stuff. A lot of people don't remember this. A couple of years ago, there was this weird trend of people on the right doing this kind of bizarre, nowhere in the Constitution does it contain a birthright. Well, Yes, it does. And it's not one of those things that's vague. It's not one of those things that could be interpreted in some other way. Like, it's actually very, 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 very clear. If you were born in the United States, you are a United States citizen. It's very, very, very clear. It's very, very... it's worded very, very simply. It has not really been a source of controversy. It's there. And you can't even speak to like, well, we don't know what the people that wrote that amendment intended. Yeah, we do. We do actually know. I mean, we have the minutes of those meetings, and we have the writings of the people that authored the 14th Amendment. And that's where it is. It's the first part of the 14th Amendment. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to their jurisdiction are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. That's what it says. So, it's pretty clear that, if two illegal immigrants come across the border and have a child here, that child is a U.S. citizen. And there is just no scenario where it makes sense to break up people's families and, deport people's parents and, even if they said, well, we'll give the kid the option of staying or going, and being put into, foster care or something. There's no way. There's no scenario where that makes any kind of sense, where it's at all practical. I mean, certainly there's nothing compassionate or humane about it. That sort of goes without saying. But that's where shit's going to get real, and I think that's a concern that I and a lot of people have. If you try and deport a whole bunch of people en masse, shit's going to get very real very quickly. Shit's going to turn violent, I think, and I don't want to see that happen. I don't think anybody wants to see that happen, but that kind of seems to be the path we're headed down, and it's really a problem. It's really, it's a thing that I just don't think we can tolerate. So, I don't know. And again, Trump has kind of said he wants to start with the criminals and the drug dealers. And, it's like, okay, well, if we can find them, getting rid of them, I think, is a fairly non-controversial, one way or the other, is kind of a fairly non-controversial point, right? I mean, if we've got, people here that are here illegally and they're committing crimes, let's get rid of them. Sure. I think that's fairly non-controversial. I think it's fairly straightforward. But the issue of, what do you do with, which is probably the vast majority of illegal immigrants that haven't committed a crime or planning on committing crimes, or, just working very, very hard. I mean, maybe single mother who's, washing dishes somewhere in a restaurant and just trying to support her kids and get them through school and give them a better life than what they would have in Mexico. I mean, if that's most of them, and I think it probably is, there's just no sense in deporting those people. I think need a path to citizenship. I mean, they effectively are citizens anyway. They're living here, they're working here, they're, why are we so hell-bent on the idea that they, even if we think, well, they came in illegally and that's not fair to the people who are trying to get here legally, which I agree with. I think, that's a fair statement. But if we're talking about something that happened, 10, 15 years ago, it's the whole thing is going to be a gigantic mess if we're really talking about trying to deport people. And I know people are scared, and that's almost more worrisome to me than anything else, because when people get scared, when people are afraid of what's going to happen, they tend to act rashly, which is why I think, we kind of go back to that whole wait and see thing. We got to just kind of see how this thing plays out. But if Trump, decides, we're going to start trying to deport 11 million people, well, then we're going to have to, then I think I'm going to turn into one of these Second Amendment guys and start stockpiling guns and ammo and say, I just don't think a free society can tolerate that shit. I don't think we can tolerate that. So, I don't know, that's going to get scary, and I really, really, really hope it doesn't come to that. I really, really hope that doesn't happen. But, it may. There's a very real possibility of it, I think. So that's the thing. But, like I said, let's wait and see, because there again, if what winds up happening is that we get the guard on the border, I think that's okay. I even prefer it in a lot of ways, because I think, one of the reasons that having the guard on the border might be a really good idea is just the sheer number of deaths that happen every year with people trying to cross the border and drowning or overheating or And, I think maybe some of those could be prevented if the guard was there, and we could say, look, you're not getting into the country, but we're not going to let you die out here either, I don't know. And just the crazy shit that's going on down there. I mean, you hear of these horror stories about, I don't know how true this is, but I've heard these stories about guys that just sit there and, try and peg illegal immigrants and brag about it, These crazy, gun nuts that are out there, I killed me 200 illegals. And, that shit is just horrifying. I mean, if that's really going on, that shit has got to stop. That's just got to stop. And you gotta get people in uniform down there with bigger guns to make sure that it doesn't continue, So, yeah, I don't know, the whole issue. I know, I don't know, I've heard that there have been walkouts in schools and stuff, and people are really scared, and it's a terrifying thought to me. It's a terrifying thought, the thought of breaking up people's families and kicking down people's doors and trying to sniff out these illegals and send them all home, and it's just, God only knows what it would do to our economy, yes, but society in general. Like I said, a free society just cannot tolerate that stuff. We've got to stop the problem at the source before we decide what to do with the people that are already here, and we can't just do that kind of massive social disruption. We just can't. It's just not going to go over well, and I, for one, am not going to let it, and I think a lot of other people won't either, so there it is. I mean, I say that as though there's really anything I can do about it, but, I'll do what I can do about it, and I think a lot of people will, so that's where shit's going to get real, and I don't want it to come to that. I really, really don't want it to come to that. The idea of having to take up arms against your own government is something that in our society at this time is almost absurd. We think about, because the Second Amendment people are always talking about it, well, what if the feds get uppity? We got to have our guns. And it sounds like an absurd argument, doesn't it? It sounds like an absurd case that really you're going to, what? You're going to... But all of a sudden it's well, maybe there's going to be a situation that really does call for it here in a minute, and God, I hope not. I think for years the hope has just been that the threat of it, that knowing that something like that is potentially possible, is enough for us to all agree that it never should, and let's just make sure it doesn't. That the threat of it, it's like nuclear warfare, the threat of it hopefully is enough for us to all understand this can never happen. This can never be allowed to happen. And we may not agree on anything else, but we agree on that. And I think that's how people felt, most liberals, conservatives, both, about taking up arms against the federal government. It's that happened once, and it cost the lives of 600,000 people, which is truly mind-boggling. I try to think about 600,000 Americans dying in anything now, and it's, oh God, it's unimaginable. And that's why it really is just such a horrifying thought. And so we hope that the threat of it, the sort of, well, that could theoretically happen, which is why it never will. I think that's been, for a very long time, that's really been what the Second Amendment people are about, is that well, as long as the threat is there, we don't ever need to actually do it. And that's certainly where I'm at. I don't ever want to have to do that. But again, you start saying, well, we're going to deport 11 million people, and it may be time. So I hope not. I really hope not. And we'll have to just kind of play it by ear. Like I said, Trump has said we're going to go after the criminals, and that's okay, and that's good. So hopefully he's not going to start busting up people's families. Anyway, that is going to do it for me today. I will be back tomorrow. God help me. I've got another day of work tomorrow. Oh, so exhausted. Anyway, I will see you guys tomorrow, and you guys all have a good evening.